Would there be anything during your coaching career that you might have done differently or changed?
That's a good question. I'll tell you guys this. I've always prided myself in doing the right thing in this business, and I can't say that's true about everybody in this business. It's a very cutthroat business, and a lot of guys will tell you that. But I allowed myself at one point when I was in Tennessee to get caught up in something I regret. I still regret it. But the ownership there, Amy Adams Strunk and her family came in and told me I was going to be the head coach in 2016 before they went through the Rooney Rule. And so I sat there knowing I was the head coach in 16 as they went through this fake hiring process, knowing a lot of the coaches that they were interviewing, knowing how much they prepared to go through those interviews, knowing that everything they could do, and they had no chance of getting that job. And actually the GM, John Robinson, he was in on the interview with me. He had no idea why he's interviewing me, that I have the job already. And I feel, I regret that's because I pride myself in my kids first, that they do the right thing. And I always said that to the players, and here I am, the head guy, not doing it. And I've regretted that since then. It was a wrong thing to do. I'm sorry I did that.
Discriminatory issues still continue for the NFL in their hiring practices, as Mike, former head coach for the Tennessee Titans, Mike Mularkey there in an October 2020 admission to a podcast talked about how he participated in a hiring practice when he already knew he had the job, but they were just carrying out the Rooney Rule, which of course every team is looking for a head coach, at least looks at some minority coaches and gives them a fair shot at the job. Now, this all is resurfacing because there's two new black head coaches, not new ones, but head coaches that are newly to this lawsuit that have been added to as they're talking about these hiring practices that go on. Let's go to some of these details, because Steve Wilks is the first of these two. On Thursday, he was fired. On Thursday, he did this, but Steve Wilks, he was fired after one season as head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and Ray Horton, who's the other one, he's a longtime assistant coach and defensive coordinator, were added to the Flores complaint. Brian Flores is the original coach that is filing these complaints with the NFL. In the amended complaint, Wilks said that the Cardinals hired him as a bridge coach in 2018, and that he was not given any meaningful chance to succeed under general manager Steve Kim, who made poor personnel decisions. The Cardinals finished with a 3-13 record that season. Wilks was fired before the team drafted quarterback Kyler Murray with that #1 pick in 2019. Cliff Kingsbury, who was white and had no NFL coaching experiences, was hired to replace Wilks. The Cardinals responded by saying in a statement, the Cardinals called the decisions after the 2018 season very difficult, and they added that they were entirely driven by what was best interest of our organization and necessary for team improvement. We are confident that the facts reflect that and demonstrate that these allegations are untrue. Let's start with the Wilks one. Rick, what do you think?
Sure. So there's one part that's just left out, and I know this is unpopular when we look at this. I completely 100% back the coaches. I do think that Steve Wilks, in my opinion, was a bridge coach. However, Steve Wilks is a defensive coach, first and foremost. Their defense was good. Like, they didn't have any problems on that side of the ball. The problem was they had Mike McCoy. Mike McCoy has, let's be honest, was not a good head coach when he was in San Diego. He was a coordinator at a few other stops. He was fired in Arizona. Team GM and president and owner, Michael Bidwell, who also at one point, wrote about how Neil Gorsuch needs to go to the Supreme Court, yada, yada. Like, they gave them Josh Rosen as a quarterback.
Yeah,
Josh Rosen was not a good NFL quarterback. Like, they had a young David Johnson behind him. They had Chase Edmonds, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk. Like, this was not a fantastic team at the most important position in the National Football League. So if we're starting with Wilks, at least, and I know there will be a follow-up here, so I'll keep it brief. The one thing that I would say is he was a bridge coach, but they wanted to draft Kyler Murray and pair him with his, college coach, which was Cliff Kingsbury. It was wrong of them to leave Wilks out to dry. He didn't deserve to be fired. And after McCoy, they also brought in Byron Leftwich, who they fired as well. But I understand like the pairing of college offenses because they're basically air raid offenses.
Yeah, well, and We can get to the second guy, but also Ray Horton is the other one, and that's where the Tennessee Titans coach there we saw at the top pointed out how he was done wrong, and of course the Titans have denied those allegations as well. So it's a matter of believing which guy you want to believe. Some of your thoughts on Horton's experience there, because he was in a similar situation.
So he has been in the NFL since 1994. Like, he's very credible. He's been in NFL circles for a long time. This is the same story we heard from Marvin Lewis when he broadcasted this message on First Take, when years ago, Chris Mortensen reported before the interview was even done that he was not getting the Carolina Panthers job and they were going with John Fox. So we are seeing this a lot, unfortunately, and I believe if more coaches wanted to speak out like Michael Bennett is asking them to, we would learn much more about this issue.
Well, we're gonna learn much more because I think there'll be more names and more allegations and more situations like this as people speak out.